This story took place in a hospital on the outskirts of our city. It was an old building with 3 floors. I graduated from medical school and went to work there. I was quickly hired because several nurses had recently quit. Before the incident I want to tell you about, I had worked for about a week and was on duty that day. As usual, we have 3 people on duty: a guard, the head of the department, and a nurse. This day went as usual. Everyone left in the evening, and it was just the 3 of us. Me, the guard Marcus, and Sarah, our supervisor. We closed the doors and drank tea. There weren't many patients, so there wasn't much to do. It all happened when I decided to walk around and see if the patients were all right. As I walked up to the 2nd floor, I suddenly heard a child crying in the silence of the hospital. I stopped. I listened and realized that the baby was crying somewhere on the 3rd floor, right next to me. My anxiety was growing. I knew for a fact that there were no children in the hospital now, and the 3rd floor was empty. As I climbed the stairs, I looked around. I couldn't see anything in the semi-darkness of the corridor, but the crying was clearly coming from one room. I went to it and opened the door. Someone was sitting on one of the beds under a blanket. He was swaying slowly from side to side and crying. "Hey," I said, walking closer to the bed and holding out my hand. The figure swaying stopped, and I drew back the blanket. In an instant, the crying stopped, and there was no one under the blanket. Empty. I started to retreat with my mouth open when I heard a stomping sound behind me, and the door to the room slammed shut. With a cry of surprise, I ran to the door and swung it open. Quick footsteps were heard in the hallway, as if someone small and barefoot was running away from me. I looked out into the hallway, and then I heard laughter coming from the room behind me. I turned around and saw someone small hiding behind a bed. The laughter belonged to a child. I could have sworn. In shock, I ran out of the room and ran for the stairs. Laughter and crying were already coming from all directions. When I reached the stairs, I turned around. I was horrified to see children running down the hall toward me. All different ages. Running, crawling on all fours. There were figures moving toward me along the walls and ceiling, all of them crying. I cried out and stepped back, and then I fell. As I rolled down the stairs to the 2nd floor and hissed in pain, I saw that no one was coming down after me, and only somewhere in the back of the 3rd floor were children's voices.
"Margaret."
It was Marcus. He jumped up to me and helped me up.
"What happened?"
"The kids," was all I could squeeze out. Looking up, Marcus said,
"Let's go downstairs. They won't get us there. We need to talk."
We went down to the 1st floor and entered the staff room, where Sarah was sitting. She handed me a mug of hot tea and began her story. It turned out that a long time ago there had been a fire in the hospital, and on the 3rd floor there was a children's ward at the time. The fire was not very strong, but there was a lot of smoke, and many children suffocated in the smoke. Since then, after the renovation, strange things began to happen on the 3rd floor. The staff and patients could hear children's footsteps in the corridors and wards, laughter and crying. And at night there were little figures of children running around. Anyway, they stopped taking patients there since the other floors were quiet. But the staff started quitting. And things kind of calmed down, and no one had seen ghosts in a long time, so they didn't tell me anything right away. Probably for nothing. Anyway, I don't work there anymore. It's a little scary to be on duty when there are ghosts around. Now I work in another hospital, and I feel good there. But I still feel that on the outskirts of the city, somewhere in the dark corners of the third floor, there are those terrible, full of anguish and suffering cries of dead children.